News here with Mike Mickey hosting you. We're taking care of you for the next hour tonight. We've got Kansas baseball, Kansas men's golf. They just finished up the Big 12 championship. What do you need to know about that? Plus, what will Check Diallo mean for the Kansas men's basketball team?
Also, we have a KU women's golf update for you, and we will preview the KU softball series against Baylor. Not to mention what we want to watch for this coming week in sports.
Plus, NBA, NHL storylines, and a draft segment you will not want to miss. All of that on 785 Live coming up
Right now.
right now.
785, 785, 785, 785. Woo! We about to get it. We about to get it. It's going to be a great show today.
Welcome back into 785 Live. You saw one of our cool new transitions there. We're going to be kind of transitioning into a new look for the show.
Got to upgrade, you know, times change fast here in this digital era, and we're just adapting, adapt or die.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, in order to adapt, let's talk about KU baseball. First off, yesterday they were in action against Arkansas Pine Bluff, a team that you would think maybe they'd do a pretty good job with, but turns out that wasn't exactly the case.
Yeah, difficult day for the Jayhawks baseball team. When you give up 5 runs in an inning, oh my gosh, especially in the beginning of the game, you'd like to think that, hey, we can, cut into this lead, which they actually kind of did.
A little bit.
But unfortunately came up just short, losing by 1 run. And, it was a heartbreaker. McKay hits a homer right in the beginning of the last inning there and just unable to bring it back. And falling to Arkansas Pine Bluff, that's just never good.
6-5 was the final score. We'll take a look at some of the highlights here. Kansas baseball, they were really up and down, but like you said it, when you give up 5 runs in a ball game in 1 inning, it's not really going to go well for the rest of the game, at least not usually. So Kansas baseball, they dropped farther away from 500 and farther away from a potential NCAA regional berth like they had last season. Nick and Kevin over there on our old style box. What did you guys take away from that game on Wednesday?
Well, it was kind of unfortunate that they lost because McKay, he went 4 for 5 in the game and had a career-high 3 runs scored, as well as Dakota Smith went 3 for 4. But besides giving up 5 runs in the first inning, we had a lot of freshmen pitch in that game. Freshman Brandon Johnson started the game, and Ryan Ralston came in to get an inning of scoreless work from the bullpen. So those were some positive things. Kevin, what did you think about this game?
Yeah, it's always disappointing when you have your stars have great days, but baseball is a pitching game. Everything goes back to the pitching, and if you can't consistently put batters away, then you're not going to come out with the W at the end of the day. And that's what happened. They couldn't put batters away in the beginning, the first inning, and they just couldn't do anything after that.
Certainly a slow start for the Jayhawks. This weekend they'll take on Baylor at Hoagland Ballpark, and like we said before, it seems like their dreams of making an NCAA regional just sliding away a little bit. But Baylor's last place in the Big 12 right now, so maybe Kansas can get back on track a little bit. Let's take a look at the preview of the pitching matchups for that series. For Kansas, it's going to be the number 1 and 2 on Friday and Saturday, the way that they usually have, with Ben Krauth on Friday and Drew Moravik on Saturday. Their Sunday starter has kind of been rotating in and out, and they haven't really found a Sunday guy. Do you think that that's contributed to their inability to produce for an entire series?
Yeah, I do. I think that, when you don't have that solid rotation that that you're going to have this guy then, and, we can count on him now, then that's something that always takes away from just your progress as a team. But there is something encouraging for the KU baseball team. Is last year, after opening up a series against Baylor, they went on a 9-game winning streak following that series. So Baylor, not one of the premier teams in the Big 12 this year, so it can be something that the Jayhawks can use to really, give this season the boost they need.
Certainly, and it's all about the pitching when you talk about the Kansas Jayhawks. And Ben Krauth, he's been throwing incredibly well since the beginning of the season. Moravik, after suffering an injury, he came back a little bit better. But that Sunday guy, they haven't really found him, and they haven't really found that glue that you really want to see to gel the whole pitching staff together. Do you think that they can find that before the end of the season?
I think it's something that they're going to need to find because, like I just said, if you don't have that dependable starter, and you can have a great first starter, you can have a good second starter too. I personally think your rotation is only as good as your worst starter, and that's something that the Jayhawks need to really build upon because you're right, it has really been inconsistency at that Sunday spot.
Yeah, we've seen Blake Wyman have struggles there when he tries to pitch a ball game. He was the one that gave up a lot of runs in the Arkansas Pine Bluff game. Let's move on now. We'll talk about KU men's golf, and fortunately we have Nick Cousin to do it with. He is the man when it comes to men's golf. He knows more about it than any of us do. They were in the Big 12 Championships, which ended yesterday over there in Oklahoma. Nick, take us through with that competition.
Well, sadly, I don't have that much to say about them. It was a pretty disappointing performance. When I was covering it, I found an interesting quote from Coach Brown when he said it best. He said, "We were seeded 8th going in the tournament, and we finished 8th." That's what's really stuck out to me. That shows you how bad of a performance they had. The leaders for Jayhawks in the Big 12 tournament were freshman Dan Hudson and sophomore Chase Hanna, but they shot 73s in their final round, which gave them +3 for their final round. But Hudson, he captured 2 birdies in the final round, getting him at +18 for a championship, and Hanna finished 1 stroke shy of him, +19, tying for 30th. So those are very impressive results for men's golf. It's now what we're looking forward to if you want to win a championship, shooting +18. And the interesting fact from that tournament is that the Texas Longhorns, they won the Big 12 championship by a massive margin of 24 strokes. They won, their final score was +10, and Texas Tech, the Raiders, who came in the runner-up title, finished at +34. So those are some big accolades there. And as for regionals, the way they finish the season, they have a chance, but it's very unlikely. But it'll be their first regional they make since 2007. So we'll see how that goes. Stay updated for that.
Yeah, absolutely. For golf, it's been a tale of 5 golfers. Chase Hanna, Ben Welly up there at the top are the undeniable stars of the team. But they've been struggling to find the 3, 4, 5 guys that work consistently tournament in and tournament out. It was Brock Dragish for a little bit. Dan Hudson's been stepping up pretty well. Connor Peck's even played well throughout the year. And then we saw Jock Wilson get the go at the Big 12 championship. But does it hurt a team when they can't find a rotation of 5 that they can really, really, gel together and become that team that goes every tournament?
It absolutely does hurt the team. It helps you and it helps the team when everyone knows their role. And that's something that the KU men's golf team just doesn't know right now. I do like the play of freshman Dan Hudson, Illinois connection right there, went to Alliance Township High School, go LT. But anyway, besides the fact, he really has been playing better and better, and that's really encouraging to see from the freshman because this is the future of the program, and it's nice to have the seniors playing well now, but it's almost at about that time when you're building on the future years, and if you can get your underclassmen to get more confidence, then it's just all the better looking forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. You look at the individuals and the differences that they finished in, and it is a problem when guys like Connor Peck and Ben Welly that are sitting up there that are your best golfers, they don't, they struggle a little bit. They don't have the kind of tournament that you want them to have, and when you look at the individual results, this is a little bit of what happened. Ben Welly didn't finish very well, and throughout the entire tournament, he didn't golf very well. And so you see that that's kind of what has been going on for Kansas. Do you like the fact that they have to rely on Connor Peck and Ben Welly to get a lot of their scoring? I mean, is that something you're a fan of?
Not necessarily. Golf is already a strenuous mental activity as is, and if you have that added pressure where if I don't shoot well, my team's not going to win. That's something that you can't be thinking about all the time, especially in a sport like golf. It's not good for any sport, but golf is, you're competing against other teams, but you're really competing against yourself too. It's one of those mental sports where you're trying to beat your records while beating others. So when you get the added pressure, man, it does not help.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. As far as Ben Welly's numbers go, he finishes at +17, but he definitely could have finished the tournament a little bit better. And then you have Connor Peck all the way down there at the bottom. The only good thing you can say about that scoreline is that the teams, all the guys were within 10 strokes of each other, so at least a little bit of consistency as far as that goes. Nick, going forward, they're losing nobody that competed in this Big 12 tournament. Ben Welly's the oldest, and he's just a junior. How good can they be next year?
Well, like you said, they're young, so they have the experience behind them now. The biggest disappointment, though, is the way that they finished. Chase Hanna's had the best year, and he finished 3rd in that, as you saw in that graphic there. But I definitely think going forward they can be successful. They have a year of golf under their belt. It's going to be Jamie Brimwell's 4th year at the helm there for Kansas Golf. So I think it's going to be a promising future, and it's going to be possible next year that the Big 12 championship will be in near Lawrence next year in Hutchinson. So we'll look forward to that.
Absolutely. What I expect to see is Brock Dragus and Dan Hudson continue to develop and figure out more about themselves and their
Right.
stroke.
It takes time with the underclassmen too. Look, you can only get better.
Absolutely. And the fall season, spring season, they are actually different. A lot of people don't really make that distinction, but they are different when you talk about the discrepancies between fall and spring. So this summer, they'll probably get a lot of work in. Chase Hanna last summer competed in a couple amateur tournaments, so maybe we'll see him do that again. And then the future is bright.
It
for
is.
men's golf.
I like it.
For men's golf. I like it too. Women's golf, we'll have that later in the show. They also competed in the Big 12 championships. But now let's talk about rowing, actually, for a little bit. That's my beat for the University of Daly Kansan. And we just want to make a little bit of a mention of it because 2 weeks ago they competed in the Next Cup in New Jersey, and they did pretty well there. They didn't finish outside the top 3 in any final event, and their first varsity 8-bow ended up winning their final event. And so that was something that you felt they could have built off of and continue to go. So this past weekend they competed in the Big 12, Big 10 double duel, and they didn't fare as well as they probably should have, or definitely that they expected to. 4 teams were in it. It was Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Iowa, and of course the University of Kansas, as you see there. Some weather conditions caused a couple shortages in races and a couple races to be combined, but at the end of the day, Kansas, they did not fare very well. They finished 4th in all of the races where all 4 teams were competing, and they finished behind almost every Big 12 team in every event. The first varsity 8-boat did not live up to the standards that they had set for themselves in the Next Cup, and as a result, Kansas was looking like they would be one of the more fearsome teams in the Big 12 going in to the Big 10, Big 12 double duel. But now, as they head out of it and heading into the Sunflower Showdown with Kansas State, they are not looking like the team they were coming out of the Next Cup, and they have just one regatta left until they compete in the Big 12 championships. So a lot of time to turn around. Rowing, as you said, it's a mental sport.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I think rowing is just a really cool sport too. How many other sports is it literally just, hey, work out, just do this in the weight room and you will get better? I think rowing is really cool. It's the continuity everyone has to have on the same boat, and they're going to find it. The more you're with your crew, obviously the better you're going to be, but that probably is more so with rowing because you need to be on the same page.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. That's something you see, and it's all about the coxswain, who literally their job is to just yell at other people. So that's another
what a job.
That's another cool dimension to the sport as far as rowing goes. It's definitely a lot of fun to watch, and if you can get out, it's in Kansas City. So if you can get out there, Kansas City, Kansas, by the way, not even Kansas City, Missouri.
Clarification.
Yeah. So
Key.
if you can get it, it's Wynot County Lake. So why not go there and catch some Kansas rowing? Another Kansas sport. Kansas basketball. Everybody loves their Kansas basketball. Well, we were thinking for a little bit there after the signing of Carlton Bragg, there was a lot of downtime where it didn't seem like any major recruit would call Kansas their home in the 2015-16 season. But Sheck Diallo ended that. He's going to be here at the University of Kansas playing basketball next year. He's from Our Savior New American in New York, actually originally from Mali, and so a little bit more of an international player. Of course, you remember Joel Embiid from Cameroon. Let's take a look at his accolades.
Yeah. Sheck Diallo is, I think, just one of the players that KU absolutely needed to land. MVP of the Jordan Brand Classic, McDonald's All-American Game 2, he was the MVP. Ranked 7th in ESPN recruiting, and 17.6 points and 10 rebounds. If you're averaging a double-double, I want you on my team.
Absolutely.
And you wonder if Joel Embiid, with the African connection, I know I'm not going to try to be ignorant and say everyone knows everyone in the country, but you wonder if his influence really had, or if him going to Kansas had influence in Diallo going to Kansas. And if it did, thank you, Joel. You've already done more for our university than you did when you were here. So absolutely thank you. But, it's really, I think that Diallo was a player the Jayhawks absolutely needed to land, and we saw the lack of inside physicality last year. Cliff is gone. Oubre was even a paint presence too at times, and now he's gone. And so Diallo is a key piece in the cog next year.
Absolutely, there at 6'9". Let's just take a look at the scouting report here on the strength. He's got a 7'4" wingspan, arms about as long as the aforementioned Kelly Oubre. He's got a very good basketball IQ, very, very strong. And he has a really good understanding of help defense as a big man, and that's why he averaged about 2.5 blocks per game as a senior. He really knows when to come off and help over there on defense, whether he's playing man or zone. But I think if you're going to take anything away from the strengths, I think it's his basketball IQ, which you can tell is very, very high just when you watch him play.
Well, basketball IQ is something that the Jayhawks really need to work on, especially for interior players. Many times, Bill Self said last year in press conferences, Landon Lucas is our smartest player. He's not our most talented player. He's getting better, but if he's your smartest player, he's the player you have to have in zone situations. If Diallo can have that high basketball intelligence, they can play him in any. If you see a 1-3-1 zone, Baylor, you could play him. You see that full court tempo against West Virginia, you can play him. You can play him in man-to-man. So with all this, he just brings so much to the table, and we need that help defense by the rim.
It also helps in the transition from the high school to the college game, but with strengths come weaknesses, and for Cheikh Diallo, I think the number one that you have to address is he's not super athletic. You see Kansas big men a lot of times come in, and they're those guys that you talk about stretch fours, stretch fives. They are athletic. Cheikh Diallo, not so much.
It's a hard one.
It is a hard one, but I think we're all going to have to get used to it. I feel like we're going to be saying his name a lot. So certainly lack of athleticism is one of those that is disturbing when you look at big men. He doesn't have a high variety of post moves, which is a problem that plagued Cliff Alexander last year. And also his jump shot needs a lot of work. But as far as high school players going to the college level, not a lot of them have a polished jump shot as far as big men go.
That's true. And, a jump shot, if you can get your big man in college to be hitting down, 12, 13-footers, that's something that teams in the NBA want.
Yep.
And if you can get that in college, you are way ahead of the curve there. And so you're right. He's not incredibly athletic, but he does have a strong build and like a linebacker build kind of, but taller. And it's going to be something that the Jayhawks need because rebounding killed us at times. Offensive rebounding in particular was something that we needed to do better, and Diallo really brings that to the table.
Agreed. Nick, Kevin, what do you guys think about the signing of Cheikh Diallo?
I love this signing. I'm calling them the Mariah Missile. And I like his defense a lot, and that would help the team, especially because they're a defense-oriented team. Bill Self likes to play defense, and that's a thing that we played well last year. I think he'll fit in perfect with our defense. His length down low can get him going. I watched his mixtape the other day. His wingspan is amazing. He can dunk over guys. Also, Bill Self did a great job with Joel Embiid, and so I think if anybody thinks there's going to be a problem with him doing well here, I don't think there's going to be a problem because of the way that Joel Embiid developed here, and I think that Cheikh will develop here under Bill Self as well. So I don't see any issues there.
Yeah, definitely. I see obviously an enormous wingspan is going to do great things for us. It's something that we missed last year. 2 years ago, Joel Embiid was this monster freak with insanely long arms, and last year, even Alexander, he wasn't a 7-footer, and he didn't have the biggest wingspan, and so we missed a big man's presence like him in the post. So he's gonna help us tremendously on defense and on offense next year.
So yeah, those of you who missed Embiid, this is your new Embiid, right?
Yes.
This year.
He is.
This upcoming year.
The Malian missile, as Nick says.
Yes.
I don't know if he is the new Joel Embiid, but we've brought in Adam Dravetta, obviously he's on the crew, so of course we brought him in, but we like to call him our local KU basketball historian. Adam, how does Cheikh Diallo compare with some of the big men that Bill Self has had since he's been the coach?
I don't know. I always have a tough time with comparisons, because things differ so much. I think the most encouraging thing I would say is you look at Thomas Robinson, even as late as his junior year, in which after which he was the 6th overall pick. He didn't have a host of moves down low. His big thing was just a turnaround shot. He really never developed a very good hook shot. So that's not a huge necessity. The coolest thing to me about Cheikh Diallo is standing flat-footed and reaching up. His reach is 9'1", I think, which means he would need about a 13-inch vertical to be able to dunk. Obviously, his vertical would be more than that. But I would say, the Joel Embiid comparison I'd be hesitant on. Joel Embiid was amazing, just an incredible center at KU. My first thought that came to mind was Darrell Arthur, who played for Kansas. He was part of the 06 recruiting class, and then stayed for 2 years, won a national championship, went 20-10 in the title game. I'm not sure if he'll be that good, but Darrell Arthur, just by size and length, was the first comparison that came to mind. He's probably not as good of a shooter. He's the best comparison, though.
Well, when we come back from the break, we'll have some KU softball and some KU women's golf that were in the Big 12 championships, plus what to watch for in sports. Welcome back to 785 Live and our pretty cool transitions, which I'm now really starting to love.
Love them. God,
Absolutely.
big fan. Great job.
Big fan of the transitions. Props to the director, of course.
Oh, great job.
Let's talk KU softball, and they were in action last weekend against the number 6 ranked team in the country, Oklahoma, along with possibly the greatest hitter to ever grace a college softball field, Lauren Chamberlain. And she was 1 home run away from setting a record for career home runs in college softball. She didn't do it in the Kansas series, thankfully. Oklahoma took 2 of those games over the Jayhawks, but the one game that they didn't was Friday, and that was a walk-off blast by Daniela Chavez. And how unique that game was. There were 3 hits, 2 of them were home runs, and 1 of them was the walk-off, and 2 of them were by Chaley Bricky, who hit a 2-run home run to start things off. They were wearing those orange jerseys, as you see there. What an amazing game against the number 6 ranked team.
Yeah, anytime you have a win in dramatic fashion like that, that's something you can absolutely build on. And you just mentioned it, right? Oklahoma is a really good team, so this is such a confidence booster for the Jayhawks softball team. And, as the season starts to wind down, you look back on wins like this, on wins against top-level, competition. And you get a lot of that in the Big 12, so it's impressive stuff whenever you can beat a high-caliber team, especially right in your own conference.
Yep. There was the Chaley Bricky home run, and she absolutely jacked that thing, and they were all very fired up about that one, as they should be.
Hell yeah.
But I think the main takeaway from the game was not so much the walk-off, but really the pitching of Alicia Pilley, which you see there, and she'd really been struggling, and we highlighted it on our last show, but she did a tremendous job. And what you're seeing here is a highlight of the top of the 8th inning, where Lauren Chamberlain started things off with a triple, and Alicia Pilley managed to get herself out of the jam, and you see Jess Roan helping her out there, getting Chamberlain out in the rundown, but Pilley was able to get herself out of a jam. Bricky was able to single, or double, actually, after the error, and then Chavez was able to knock out a beauty to win the game. But the takeaway for me was Alicia Pilley, the fact that we called her out on the last show, and she responded.
No, I agree, Griffin. She must have been listening, and
it would make me very happy if she was.
Right, and I just mentioned that this is going to be something, look how excited the Jayhawks are just to get that win, and this is going to be something that the whole team builds off, but it was so important for Pilley to have that because, we were thinking last show, maybe it's something, within herself. We know that she has talent, but I don't know if she knew that she had talent. After a game like that, she better know that she has talent because that win is just so big for the program and, build off it. Keep going.
Absolutely agree. As far as Pilley's future goes, she pitched very well. The difference, we'll highlight it in a little bit when we talk preview, but Nick and Kevin, how big was it for Pilley to pitch the way she did in the Oklahoma series?
Well, as we saw, she struggled a lot. And if she is watching the show, I'm very happy about that. That'd be awesome. But we've seen her numbers fall in the Big 12. Starting with the Big 12, we were starting to think, do the Big 12 teams, have they figured her out? And we can see in this game there is some confidence left in her, and that's good because she will be honored this Saturday night for senior night along with Shannon Auden, Maddie Stein, and Beth Wilson. So hopefully in these last couple shots of games here, she finds her way into another winning season here for her overall record.
Yeah, you could see on the highlight she was painting the corners like she was earlier in the season and getting called strikeouts, which are big, very important because the hitter doesn't think that they're in there, but they are, and it's just a huge confident booster. Like Griffin said, she was able to get out of the jam in the game with the leadoff triple, and it's just a huge confidence booster that she knows that she can pitch what she needs to when she needs to and get batters out.
And Griffin, he calls the games with Sam Davis for the Jayhawk Sports Network and KAthletics.com, and he said it best. She was painting corners like Picasso. So
well, you don't know the whole story.
Hey, why don't you tell us, Griffin? Tell
Okay,
us.
the phrase in baseball and softball is when you paint the corners, they call you a Rembrandt. But from Alicia Pilley, what she was doing was she was hitting an outside corner, and then she was throwing a dirt ball that hit the ground 10 feet from the plate, and then she was hitting an inside corner and then doing the same thing. So I was thinking that she wasn't so much a Rembrandt as she was a Picasso. You know, she doesn't. They're not necessarily all in the same pieces and look pretty, but at the end of the day, it's a classic, and she's a classic pitcher.
Yeah, you know, whenever you really dial in, and you can tell pretty soon, or pretty much right away when a pitcher's starting, is if are they going to have their stuff or not. And if you're getting the corners, if you're getting those called strikeouts, I agree, Kevin. I think the called strikeouts are, you know, almost better than the ones where the batters think it was a strike and tried to hit, they just missed. But when you're really painting those corners, the day just seems to go by way faster for you.
Absolutely. Well, much like the baseball team, the softball team takes on Baylor this weekend at Rock Chalk Park. And let's take a look at the preview, some of the things that we're looking for this weekend. And the number one has to be, can Pilley continue with that kind of dominant stuff? I mean, you see the difference. She had 13 innings, 7 earned runs, 9 strikeouts in the 2 starts against Oklahoma. Then, of course, will the offense be able to find itself? They have just 8 runs in the 3 games this past weekend. They averaged 6 per game. And so they had just 2 more in 3 than they usually have in 1. And then, of course, how much does this team still have to play for? We know they're going to make an NCAA regional, but can they be a 1 seed? Probably not. They probably can't host one, be the top of their pod. And in softball, you see sometimes teams get trapped in that middle ground where they're a 2 seed, but they end up getting put in a really tough region where even if they manage to get out of the regional, they'll play a Florida or an Oklahoma in the super regional and not be able to get to the College World Series. So how much does this team really still have to play for?
Well, I think they have a whole lot to play for. And, you know, even when you're not, you know, too concerned about seeding because you are deadlocked in a certain, location, you still have a lot to play for because you want to be able to be in the top form. That's why I don't understand why teams would ever, take it easy towards the end of the season. This is where you fine-tune all your stuff and make sure everyone's on the same page. And, back to Pilley previewing this Baylor series, 9 Ks, that's a lot in 2 starts. But one thing she has to realize is you don't necessarily need to strike every single batter out. That's when you can start to overthink things, lose the control a little bit, trust the outfield behind him, or behind her, excuse me. And, you don't need to strike everyone out. Don't work too hard. Just let your game come to you. And, I think that they can continue the success against Baylor.
Pilley 5th all-time in terms of Kansas softball in strikeouts, and she can move into 4th this weekend depending on her numbers against Baylor. Nick and Kevin, of all the things that we're looking for this coming weekend for the softball team, what's one that intrigues you the most?
I think you guys hit it on the coffin there. I think the dominance of Alicia Pilley, I think she needs to keep it going. She needs to end her senior year the way we all want her to end it with a couple wins here at the end. And also, I want to see those freshmen and sophomore pitchers come in and replace Pilley and have great starts as well. So see some of those young guys, young ladies come in and do well as the seniors going out with a bang.
Yeah, definitely. Pitching is going to be key, obviously, like it is for any sport or any game. But I think the offense needs to pick up some more slack too. Griffin was talking about how it dipped a little in the Oklahoma series, and so they need to find their offense again, be able to start getting hits when they need them, runners in scoring position, and then Alicia Pilley needs to get her dominance back.
Yeah, hitting's definitely a factor. They didn't score any runs on that
Right.
Saturday game. They got shut
Exactly.
out 13-0. So
Yeah.
yeah, hitting's definitely that offense needs to be there, and we've seen that power with Daniela Chavez. She hit
Yeah.
that walk-off home run. So
Exactly.
they definitely have a lot of power on
They
this
do.
team. So the offense needs to definitely come in
Yeah.
the clutch.
You can't win without any runs.
Exactly. I mean, you can have good pitching, but
Yeah,
unless you score runs, you're not going anywhere.
exactly.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Hitting definitely going to be a big factor against Baylor, and then as we said, they are sure to make an NCAA regional. We'll just see where they get placed. As of right now, it looks like they will be in the region with, I believe it was Georgia is the one in their region, along with Kennesaw State and Iona. So those are the 3 that are going to be in their
All
region.
over the map.
Exactly,
Really all over
place.
the
And
map.
that region, that pod will be in Georgia, but of course Georgia, one of the weaker SEC teams as far as SEC goes. Besides football, we all know how dominant they are in football, but baseball and softball, they clean up pretty well as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's anytime you're in the SEC, this is just a little off tangent, but you just have such an advantage in baseball. You have beautiful weather all year round. It's baseball culture, so they should be better. But, I'm excited to see how the KU softball team does in the postseason because they are a very good team, and it's unfortunate that, not too many people are aware of just how good they are, but it's going to be really fun to see if they can make a deep run and pull off some upsets in the postseason.
I definitely agree. From one women's team to another, let's check out KU women's golf. They were in action this past weekend in the Big 12 championships, and they fared just about as well as the men. Unfortunately, Nick Cousin, he's also the beat writer for them. Nick, take us through this past weekend in women's golf.
Yes, that's me. I also cover women's golf. They did the same exact thing as the men. They finished in 8th place. They placed plus 42. As you can see here, Baylor won the championship shooting an 867, which is plus 3 to claim their Big 12 title. And there you go with Kansas in the 8th place there. But moving on to some individual standings, Pornvika Sakti, she earned all tournament honors along with Yupaporn, Kopaporn, and they had Sakti, she shot an even par, which is 216, and Kopaporn shot plus 1 and tied in 5th behind her teammate Sakti, so 1 stroke behind. The regionals weren't looking too great for them as a team, but individually, where there was one, and her name is Kopaporn, who came in 5th place there, finishing plus 1, so she will get an individual regional invite, and that will be May 7th and the 9th. So we'll see how she fares in that, and we'll be talking about it on the show next week, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on her and how she fares in regional play. Unfortunately, the women's team looking like they will not make an NCAA regional this year, even though they started out the season fairly well. But going forward, we expect to see a lot of big things. And Yupaporn Kaporn, wow, that's a tough one.
It's hard.
It is
It's
difficult.
hard.
It's
just
difficult.
hard. Yeah, we were
can just call her.
Diallo being tough.
We can just call her Mook.
That's
Mook is the
it.
nickname
Affectionately,
that
she's
Coach
called
O'Neill's given her.
affectionately by Coach Aaron O'Neill. She's called Mook. So that's her name, and if you hear Mook, that's exactly who we're referring to.
So you don't have to say her long name
She'll
because we
still
both
be
butcher it.
at the University of Kansas, so certainly just like the men, the women,
Yeah.
they're going to be better next year.
Just
And
wait till
that's-
next year.
Wait till next year.
But
That's
they do
the way
have
to
3
go.
seniors graduating, so they're not as young as the men.
Yeah.
They're not as young, but certainly the ones that we would expect to see production from, they'll be back. So men and women's golf, a lot to be excited about going into next year. Speaking of a lot to be excited about, going into this weekend, there's a lot to be excited about. And if you're a sports fan, there isn't much of a better time than in this April turning into May area, the NBA playoffs, the NHL
best.
playoffs.
It's the absolute best.
It's just about as good as it gets. So
Mike's
we
favorite season.
compiled a little bit of a list of what you want to be watching for in sports this coming weekend, and we hit just about everything from the NBA to the NHL, some Jayhawk Classic, the EPL, which I don't know if any of you care about, but I
wonder
do.
who chose that. Yeah.
Yeah, gee.
Griffin, he gets to do whatever
Adam's
he
a
wants
huge
on his
soccer fan, I hear. Adam really loves his BPL.
Any UCLA
so-
games in there, Griffin?
I'm sorry?
Any UCLA games in there?
No, the UCLA,
Okay.
UCLA is
Just
actually a
checking.
university, Nick.
Just checking.
That's what it is. So I guess we'll start from the top, and obviously if you're talking this weekend and you're talking future, you got to be talking NFL draft. It starts tonight, actually just after we're done with our show here. Mike, we did our segment last time. We talked about our top 10, crazy trades. What else is there to talk about with the NFL draft? I mean, what are you looking for tonight?
Well, I think the NFL draft, for one thing, I think it's nice. I think it's exciting, and I like that people get excited about it. But 10 minutes on the clock in round one, oh my gosh, I can look at Twitter and see who I got in 20 seconds. But, that's besides the point. Passion is passion. But, I want one more chance to endorse Bryce Petty, and I could be so wrong about it, but I don't think I am. I think that he's going to fall late, recently they've been saying maybe round 1 now. At first it wasn't even close to round 1, but I think he's going to be the best quarterback in this draft, and he has an incredibly high football IQ and just huge hands that can just whip the ball around. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he progresses. I like kind of the lesser talked about people and keeping track of where, how they end up. Like Tom Brady was not drafted, I believe, 6th round or 4th?
6th round.
Yeah, that's incredible. So keep an eye out for some of the less talked about players.
Absolutely. Kevin, the NFL is your domain. NFL draft, we're getting right there. Is there anything that maybe is about to change tonight?
We talked about Todd Gurley a little bit last week. I can see him slipping up into the top 10.
You got Todd McShay over here. That's what Todd McShay had in his mock draft.
Exactly. Not other than Todd McShay, not a lot of people are talking about Todd Gurley, but the things he was doing in college were just out of this mind. I was watching highlights earlier today and running
Getting
over
pumped,
people.
getting ready for the draft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. But he runs over people, he jumps over people, so I think you could see him sneaking into the top 10. And to your point, Mike, I think I agree about Bryce Petty. I don't know about being the first or the best quarterback in this draft, but I can see him late first round. Somebody who doesn't need a quarterback right away, someone who's looking to draft for the future. He's got a great arm, huge hands, slings the ball around in that Baylor spread offense, scored 50 points a game last year. So I see Bryce Petty doing well in the league. So, yeah.
We do have there is a couple headlines going into the draft, obviously. That number 2 pick, as we talked about last week in our trade possibilities, is the hot commodity in this draft.
It is.
We have 3 or 4 teams that are interested in trading up for that number 2 pick. The Eagles have shown some interest, and obviously because Chip Kelly wants to get his quarterback from Oregon.
Yeah.
But also, the interesting one was the Browns trying to trade up.
Yeah, the Browns.
We thought that Johnny Manziel would be their franchise quarterback, but obviously last year he didn't pan out to be that. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I got that news earlier today and was slightly surprised, but I mean, it's the Cleveland Browns. They don't know how to draft.
That's true.
They've had 20 starting quarterbacks or something since 2000, so it's just another addition in the long list of Cleveland Brown mess-ups. I don't know how they're going to deal with Johnny Manziel going forward with his rehab and his lackluster play last year.
And then another quick headline is that we had Shane Ray. He got cited for marijuana, and we also saw that earlier with Randy Gregory. So we'll see how that fares out. He might slip out of that first round, just like people are saying Gregory will. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, let's head back to our nice little storyline graphic, what to watch for. And there's stuff from all over the country and all over the sporting world. Mike, I know you're an NBA guy. You're an NHL guy as well. Your Blackhawks, they're still in it. So what are you more excited for, NBA or NHL?
Well, I'm going to go the NBA route here and, betray a lot of my Chicago counterparts who are way into the Hawks. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I think that the Memphis Grizzlies, the 5th seed in the West, are going to take down the powerhouse that is the Golden State Warriors. It's not a popular pick, but I just want to take this time to demonstrate the inside physicality of the Grizzlies, the rebounding edge that they're going to inevitably have over the Warriors, and then the ability that they also have to lock down the perimeter. And the perimeter is a place that Golden State likes to hang out a lot. So it's going to be a great series. I'm so excited for it. It's nice that it's set in stone and both teams get to rest, and Conley's going to be back, which is important.
Right.
But I think that the Grizzlies are actually going to pull off a huge upset, and the small market will prevail.
Small market. In the NBA, it's all about small markets. People love seeing small markets win. For me, the 2 that I'm looking out for, the Orioles, not necessarily who they're playing. I mean, it's early in the baseball season, so it's certainly not the excitement of the NBA or NHL playoffs. But for me, it's more, can they respond to the riots in their hometown?
Yeah.
We've seen teams come together over something like that, but then we've seen teams fall apart because of something like that. So I'll be anxious to see whether they can respond. And then, of course, I mentioned the BPL. Chelsea, they're closing in on a title. They would dethrone Manchester City. They're just 2 wins away from clinching it at this point. And now that they've been knocked out of the Champions League, there's really not much more they can do besides win the Barclays Premier League title. Adam, is there anything else that we missed that you're looking for?
The Kentucky Derby. The Kentucky Derby is this Saturday.
Manny Pacquiao, too.
I don't pretend to be a horse racing aficionado throughout the year, but I'm a sucker for pomp and circumstance. So I think the Kentucky Derby is a pretty cool event. So and something about a fight, I guess. Manny Pacquiao, and as G.J. Amelia eloquently put it in his column, this wasn't word for word, but Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather duking it out to see who's a more terrible human being this weekend. It's about $9,000 to order on pay-per-view. So that one's going on too. So the Kentucky Derby and boxing are two really big ones.
Well, you mentioned the Kentucky Derby. We're all looking out for that. But boxing, we've got something that has to do with that. So if you want to figure out what it is, stay tuned. We'll tell you after the break on 785 Live. Everybody loves Fever Pitch, by the way. That's like what we were talking about. Well, back here, 785 Live, NBA, NHL, playoffs, in action. Have I bored you enough with talking like this already?
No, your intense voice matches the intensity of the playoffs. It really is. You said it earlier. Just the best time of the year. NBA playoffs are like my Christmas, except it's 3 months long, and the Bulls hopefully are a better present than last year. But I think the storylines have been great in the NBA, and there was some sweeps, or a few, but they were to be expected, and they were still close games. So I think it's been great.
Let's take a look at those storylines from the NBA playoffs. There were a couple of them that you like to look out for. Obviously, the sweeps are going to be one. But I think the one that I'm curious, can the Warriors, like you said before, they like to hang out on the perimeter, and they're going to face a team that is very good defending on the perimeter. So can they continue to play their game and get to the finals like I figured they would, and a lot of people figured they would?
Well, I thought Memphis was going to – I think they're actually going to win the NBA championship. It's going to go out west. And as soon as they got Jeff Green near the trade deadline, that really did it for me. Because that's always something they needed. They needed that 3 guard that can score. Tayshaun Prince, all right, you were great. You're 45, and you can't win a title with him. And as soon as they got Green, Courtney Lee can come off the bench now if he needs to. I think this team is rugged enough defensively. Defense doesn't have bad shooting nights, and they're going to be plenty rested. Mike Conley, probably one of the best floor generals in the NBA, underappreciated, under-talked about. He is going to give Steph Curry a really hard time.
Guys, as far as the NBA goes, real quickly, what are you guys looking at?
I'm looking for the Bulls to clinch tonight against the Bucks and going to face the Cavs, who swept against the Celtics. So that would be a good matchup, LeBron versus D Rose. Well, that's my favorite matchup of the playoffs.
I'm looking for the Cavs without Kevin Love. They're going to be a completely different team, or significantly different team without Kevin Love on the floor. Now that he dislocated his shoulder, so
4 to 6 months. That's a long time.
Yeah, he had successful surgery.
Surgery's not successful ever.
Well, yeah, true. But so it'll be interesting to see how LeBron reacts without his third of the big 3.
I mean, welcome GJ to the table, GJ.
Yeah, I agree with the Cavs. I am hoping to see LeBron go maybe average 30, 15, and 10 to see if he can will the minus Kevin Love Cavs to a title. But then, and then I'm also looking to see if the Spurs are going to do it again, because Tim Duncan is averaging, right? I'm pretty sure he's averaging some of the best numbers of his career, and he's 39. He's a dinosaur, but he's still there. And so are the Spurs. And as I was watching the game last night when they pulled off the victory in LA to take the series lead 3-2, I just saw it happening again of, oh boy, here come the Spurs. They're the 6th seed. Who cares? They're going to win it because they're the Spurs. They have the right coach and they have all the pieces. There's nothing that's telling me that they won't win it again. So those are my storylines.
There's no shortage of storylines to watch for in the NBA, but another league that starts with N, NHL, they're also in playoff time, and if you're a hockey fan, and I know that those are a little bit less common than NBA fans, but I am, and so let's take a look at some of the headlines, and I think the number one that jumps off the board, obviously, is the number 1 Blues, they go down, and the wild card Wild, they go up, and so they're going to move on. The Wild, by the way, they're one of those teams from the Central Division. 4 of their 6 teams got into the playoffs, and unfortunately one of the 2 that didn't was the Avalanche, so I don't really like to talk about that very much. And then in the East, Islanders versus Capitals. There were a couple Game 7s. That was one of them. The Capitals ended up winning that. And then Lightning versus Red Wings. The Lightning ended up winning that, and I'm not shameful. I don't take too much shame in saying that I'm very happy about that. I don't like the Red Wings.
Right. I think it's just kind of a disappointment that the Islanders didn't come out of that series, because it would have been fun to see a Rangers-Islanders next round. But, I'm just excited for the Blackhawks. They've had that goalie drama. It's going to be interesting to see who is, the guy going forward. Crawford will be starting Game 1. But if Crawford struggles early, are you going back to Darling? And that's a tough thing for a coach to deal with, the 2 goalies, 2 quarterback situations. Whenever you have 2 good players, not one that's way better, it's a little awkward in there. And, I think Coach Quenneville is handling it well so far, but it's going to be interesting to see how he does in the future.
You and your Blackhawk
Yeah,
problems.
right.
Having 2 goalies and things. At least the Avs have
Yeah.
one.
Oh, we have 2 good goalies. Oh man.
Yeah, no, real problem, right? Well, Adam mentioned something about a fight going on this weekend, and there's a little bit of a fight going on 785 Live. What we did is, as we usually do, we've got our little draft, and what we decided, we like boxing here at 785 Live, but we wish that more athletes were boxers. So, what if they were? So we each picked an athlete that we figured would do the best in a typical 15-round match, much like they're going to have this weekend, and we just duked it out, little double elimination tournament action, and as usual, our tradition of 2 weeks, the winner gets a little roast time. So we don't know who it is yet, but you will come about 10 minutes from now. So let's just announce our picks real quickly. We'll start with Adam. We'll work our way through. Adam, who is your pick for your athlete that you're going to send to the 785 Live Boxing Championship?
I went for tenacity over power and conditioning and quickness over power. So I went with Usain Bolt. I think he can wear a guy down over the course of 12 rounds. He's not getting Cal seems to like that, or something terrible is happening with him. One of the two. Either way, he's waving his arms in seeming excitement. I went with Usain Bolt. I think his quickness would wear somebody down. He's not delivering any knockout blows, but he's so long. He'd be able to dodge punches while simultaneously landing a few. So my guy was Usain Bolt.
Well, for me, I picked Adam Foote. He's a hockey enforcer. He played for the Avalanche. His prime was about 10 years ago or so, and you couldn't go a game without him being in a fight or getting in some kind of penalty. He led the NHL in penalty minutes. I don't know how many years. He's fearsome. He's big. He's strong. An NHL enforcer is probably the guy you want in a fight. So that's my guy.
Yeah, I went with the Artest, formerly known as Ron. I think that Meta World Peace would be just a great choice. I mean, he fought the entire palace of Auburn Hills almost, and he was about 14-0 until that whole year suspension thing. But yeah, I went with Ron Artest because the Ron Artest was much more vicious than the Meta World Peace.
Agreed. GJ?
Yeah, I mean, for this, I picked Shaq because he's Shaq, and he's just going to Shaq all over you.
Shaq Diesel.
He's just going to eat Shaq Diesel, Superman, the big Aristotle, whatever. Whatever you want to call him, he's just going to beat you because he's Shaq, and he's awesome, and he's 300 pounds, and he can either punch you, just outwear you. I mean, you probably can't even hit his face because he's over 7 foot. So that's why I picked Shaq.
Well, I went soccer. I know that's surprising that Griffin went hockey and I went soccer because those are our sports of expertise. But I went with Zinedine Zidane, the former French star, and I looked at his
You can't
headbutting.
use your head.
Yeah,
You
that's
can if
exactly.
you want. Nobody said anything about it.
That's exactly what I actually looked at. I looked at his headbutting skills. I think he could take a tall guy and just headbutt him right and falls right over. So I think that's the advantage we have right there with the headbutt.
Well, I went with football, also surprising. I went with former Tennessee Titans and Miami Dolphins cornerback Cortland Finnegan.
You can't.
Throwing helmets at people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He picked a bunch of fights while he was in the NFL, famously with Andre Johnson, and he just went around picking fights and won a lot of them. So he was my guy.
My prediction is Nick gets eliminated first, but we're not here to tell you that. Scott Chasen is here to tell you that. He's been sequestered in a secluded location. We don't know anything about him, and all he has in front of him is the fight matchups. So let's get right to it. And actually, the first round was Adam Foote versus Zinedine Zidane, myself versus Nick. What does Scott have to say about that?
Well, here's the deal with this matchup. Usain Bolt actually has the height, weight, and speed advantage. Not to mention, Finnegan couldn't even take down Andre Johnson. I'm going Usain Bolt in this one, and I don't think it's close at all. Usain Bolt's about 6'5". Huge advantage there. Overall, the better athlete. Give me Bolt.
I'll take the
point
win.
out that the secret location was apparently the opening ceremonies of the 2012 Olympics. How did we get there?
Our budget's
We
expanded.
knew this. We knew this draft would happen way beforehand. We've been planning this out for years. We don't get to say where his location is, but I'll take the win on that gladly. I'll move on to the next round. Our next matchup is to conclude the first round. We did a random draw, so Mike and GJ, they got buys into the next round. Totally random, I promise. Our next one was Kevin against Adam. What does Scott have to say about that?
Well, obviously, with Zidane, you talk about the ability to headbutt the opponent. Could be a distinct advantage there, but Adam Foote on ice, there's the advantage. If he can get that thing to a hockey rink, maybe run away and find some ice to play on. He is definitely the man in this one. Give me Adam Foote, hockey over soccer, 10 times out of 10.
Well, I guess Scott got a little bit switched around there. Either way, I move on, and I'm going to take on GJ. I'll take that one. And Kevin moves on, so we'll see how he does with that. Let's take a look at the bracket now as it stands. And yes, I will take on GJ, gladly. And, oh, sorry, Adam's going to take on GJ. What am I doing? I'm taking on Mike. Totally got the bracket mixed around in my head. So Kevin and Nick await the losers of those two matchups. So let's get to that. GJ and Adam, they were next. Let's see what Scott had to say about that matchup.
Well, for fans of the Rocky series, we have one of those matchups, Rocky Balboa versus Clubber Lang and Usain Bolt versus Shaquille O'Neal. However, this time I'm taking Clubber. Shaquille O'Neal, even at the age of 43, 7'1", a gigantic human being, as we see on the NBA on TNT, can still move sometime. Not to mention, he has not one but 2 fighting video games. Give me Shaq.
I think GJ will take that as well. Can't say I'm really surprised, though.
No, Shaq is just a mountain, and that was a great pick. It was a good pick, but we'll see. I want that second ring, though.
He's getting us with that. Well, the hosts, we're about to face off. Myself and Mike.
I'm hungry for round 2, dude. I want to defend this title.
You're
I
proud
dreamt of it
one-week title.
Yeah, this historic champion.
1 week defending
I want 2
champion.
rings. Yeah, I want the 3-peat.
All right, well, let's see if Scott is going to be kind enough to give it to you.
Don't think people realize how big of a human being Meta World Peacer Ron Artest is. He's 6'7", 260. Now, his last action was in Liga Basket Serie A for basketball, so not exactly the spry athlete he once was, but talking about a guy like Adam Foote, who is 43, I'm going to give the advantage to Meta World Peace.
Okay, unfortunately,
Yep, I'm just stretching out for me to hoist my next trophy. It's coming.
there's a long way to go. There's a long way to go, my friend.
Got a
and
lot of show left,
you know
but
what?
No problem.
Maybe Scott will figure out exactly who Adam Foote is and maybe look at a couple
know your audience.
highlight reels. I didn't know it was going to be Scott. None of us knew it was going to be
That's
Scott.
true, that's
so, we didn't know at the time. So let's take a look at the bracket now and how it stands. And we've got a couple elimination games that are getting ready to take place here. Myself and Adam, we both lost. So Adam's going to take on Nick. I'm going to take on Kevin. GJ and Mike will face each other in the next round. And
poor GJ just doesn't stand a chance. You know? There's just no
with that
way.
7-foot behemoth that is Shaquille O'Neal. Well, let's get straight to the next matchup. I play Kevin. Loser is out. Let's see what Scott has to say about that.
Now, we all know Foote, a great defensive player, a very gritty player, I think would be a good way to describe that. Fit right in on the Memphis Grizzlies if they went to hockey. But Cortland Finnegan, he's a guy, he wants to antagonize you. In this scenario, though, it's a bad idea. Foote takes this one by a wide margin. Maybe he hits him with his skate or something. I really don't know. He's going to win.
I'll take it. Kevin gone. Looks like Scott wised up a little bit about who Adam Foote was. So still one loss could knock me out, but I'll still go on with that win.
You gotta survive.
I survive and advance. I believe that's the name of the game. Let's go Nick and Adam and Zinedine Zidane. Let's see if he has what it takes to keep moving on. Scott, whenever you're ready, my friend.
Well, with Zidane versus Usain Bolt, it's again a speed versus more power matchup. Zidane has had, I believe, 15 red cards in his career, so he certainly knows how to mix it up. One blow from him would end this one, especially the headbutt. Give me Zidane, though Usain Bolt would be a close second.
Adam and Kevin, you are out. Anything to say for yourselves?
Man, I thought Cortland was gonna win. I just see flashes of Finnegan fighting Andre Johnson, man. That was a scary fight. I thought he was gonna take some people down.
With some helmets, yeah. Just throw him the
I
helmet.
thought he was going to win. Helmets. I thought he was going to win, man. Adam, anything to say for yourself?
I'm just really excited. I got my Chipotle order in on the app before my phone died.
All right, well, I see the confidence he has there. Mike and GJ, you guys are the survive and advance that haven't lost yet. So
Yep.
the loser will play me in an elimination game. But first we got to decide who that loser is. And, of course, Scott is here to tell us who.
Well, Zidane versus Foote again, round 2. This time I'm taking the upset. No, I'm not. It is going to be Foote again. Zidane cannot, will not, and I guess just all around won't beat him.
I'm sorry, it was me and Nick. I don't know what I was doing. Scott had it right. I didn't have it right. So now the loser of Adam and GJ gets to go ahead and get me. I just knew it was going to be me anyway, so because it's a Foot Zidane matchup. Scott already decided that once.
Yeah.
So, no, I win, and I'll be playing the loser of Adam and GJ. But who does Scott have to say about that?
Ron Artest, Meta World Peace versus Shaquille O'Neal. This is an amazing matchup. This would go the distance. This, in a series, would go 7 games. There's not enough cliches you could throw at this one. Ron Artest obviously has the crazy to stick around with Shaq. Probably has a little bit more power. I'm still going back and forth on this one. Off the cuff, give me Ron Artest. I'll take a little bit of an undersized guy, but he's got the fighting experience, especially against a guy like Ben Wallace. He's going to win this one.
All right, then.
Yeah, well, Ron had a good run, but next week
You're
is
not
when
done
I start.
yet. Nobody's done yet. It is double elimination. So,
Right. Double elimination. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at the bracket at how it stands right now. Just 2 games remaining to crown a champion, and I feel confident about myself and my pick. Adam Foote, one of the most feared enforcers in all of the NHL. So let's look at the bracket and how it stands. And man, Kevin, Nick, Adam, sorry to see you go, guys, but unfortunately, this is the end. And Nick, also sorry to see you go, but this is also the end for you. Shaq goes down, Foot goes up. The winner awaits Ron Artest in the finals. Let's not keep you waiting any longer. Who is the winner?
Well, in this matchup, it has to be Shaquille O'Neal. You look at a guy that puts up with Charles Barkley on a regular basis. He's got to be a very hard and tough person to simply deal with that. So give me him over Foot.
Oh, it pains me. It pains me, Mike. It pains me. But
Well, there's always next.
you'll
There's
move
always
on.
next week. Yeah.
Chance to defend your title against GJ, and let's not keep you waiting
just
any
doesn't
longer
stand
for
a
that.
chance. Oh my gosh.
Okay. GJ moves on. And it'll be Mike and GJ. We know who won the first time. Let's see if he wins again. Scott.
Well, the great matchup is back again for Shaquille O'Neal. You talk about fights with like Brad Miller, Charles Barkley. This guy was not afraid to mix it up with anybody. And then looking at the other side of that thing, Meta World Peace, Ron Artest fighting with Ben Wallace, elbowing James Harden in the head. Absolutely 2 ferocious athletes, both in and out of the ring, in and out of the court. Little interesting, it was some basketball players making it to the end. I did pick Meta World Peace last time in a size upset, and this time I'm going to stick to my word in that I said it would be competitive, it would go back and forth. Shaquille O'Neal gets the tournament victory.
Well, thank you very much to Scott, Jason. Mike, you couldn't do it. GJ is the winner, and that means that, of course, he gets his roast time. GJ, all you, buddy.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and take my Shactus home with me because I think that's what we're going to call the trophy now. It's the Shactus. And it's going to be a big cactus made of gold and Shaq. But yeah, I mean, Shaq, 300 pounds, 7'2", 7'3". I'm happy I won. Looks like that's going to be it for our show. We're out of time. Catch us next week, last show of the semester, I believe. Is that correct, Griffin?
That's the one.
Last show of the semester. You don't want to miss us 6 in a room because we get a little rowdy, and we're happy.
As you can see from today.
Thanks for joining our rowdiness. Catch us next week.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you're on the clock.